My little extraterrestrial, and the view from space when people are looking at planet Earth is, what the hell? Um, the view from what's the place called where the hunters go? It's like the hunter's shack or something. And they're not ready to talk. The view from Minnesota. This is the Vikings. I don't think we're ready for it yet. The view from Cuba is. I'm almost out of hats. What do you think Minnesota people think? A lot of people in Minnesota hunt deer. The extraterrestrial guy goes, "Come on, Earthlings, what's really going on?" Or, as Christopher Isherwood calling, as you might know, I'm a novelist, and generally speaking, the view from Great Britain is, well, okay, I'm out fishing today. I got my Molson Export. That's an ale, which is a heavy beer from Canada, and I'm pissed. Did we get any? Somebody wants to know if we got any fish. I don't know, but I called Buzz. All right, it's Christopher again. And in any event, if we were going to give today's news in a nutshell, it's I heard the CBC today. That's the Canadian Broadcasting Company. It's not a company, it's government owned. It's government news from the government of Canada. And they said they're going to force everyone to wear a mask all the time. The government of Cuba is a known dictatorship, communist. What's the difference between Cuba and Canada? Still no talk from the Hunter's Lodge. And in Minnesota, Minnesota's on the border of Canada. I'm sorry, people in Minnesota, even though they know north of us is Canada, very few of them actually come into Canada. Very few. Why? It's not really known, but I live in Canada north of Minnesota, due north of Minnesota, and there are not too many people from Minnesota visiting Canada. Why? It's right next door. You got a Minnesota road that takes you right to the border. Why don't people from Minnesota come to Canada in droves? You know, it's going to be like a long weekend. We're going to Canada. It's right there. It's like so close. If you live in Minneapolis, if you go fast, you can make it to the border in about 6 hours. That's nothing. Why don't people from Minnesota come to Canada? Are they afraid of Canadians? I think so. I think so. I can't explain anything other than Americans in particular are afraid of Canada. And why that might be is probably going to take me about, it's about 6 minutes to talk about it. What's in Canada that keeps Americans away? Americans are convinced that Canada is a lot like Cuba. Number one reason, in Canada, you can't have guns. Actually, the hunters of Canada will tell you, you can have long guns for hunting. Rifles and shotguns. You cannot have fully automatic weapons, and you cannot have handguns. Actually, if you are a target shooter, you can have handgun. It's a lot of regulations, but it's not totally prohibited. But fully automatic weapons are prohibited. Is that the reason why you don't want to come to Canada? Because Canadians don't have Saturday night specials in their glove compartments, in their cars? Is that why? Somehow it's still a feeling that Canada is socialist because they have national health care. So it sounds like Cuba to me. People from Minnesota still, why don't they want to come into Canada and check it out? It's like an easy drive to a foreign country. Why don't they want to come? Now, a few Minnesotans do cross the border into Canada, because I do see, not this year with the border closed, but in most years I do see a few Minnesota license plates on cars driving around in my town, north of the Minnesota border. But not a lot. The population of Canada north of Minnesota is very small. If you took the cities due north of Minnesota in Canada, it's in Ontario province primarily, and you might be looking at, if you put them all together, all the little towns, and there's one small city and some very small cities, let's go with 200,000 people. 200,000 people, Canadians living north of Minnesota. There's millions of people in Minnesota. Why do so few people from Minnesota cross the border into Canada? I know, it's because they don't have a passport. Because some years back, I think they said that you have to have a passport to come into Canada. In the past, if you had a Minnesota state driver's license, that'd be good enough. So why is it that the Canadian government and the U.S. government, because it's the same now, in the past you didn't have to have a passport to go into the United States. Everything changed with 9/11. After 9/11, governments really cranked down. Some people say, well, we need to stop terrorists. But if the Minnesota government is good enough for Minnesota police to accept Minnesota driver's licenses, why do you have to get the federal government involved with passports? And the same thing in Canada. If the government of Ontario will accept Minnesota license plates and Minnesota driver's licenses, you don't come to Canada, across the border, and then have to go through a driver's education course right at the border and pass a test to see if you can drive in Ontario. No. But now you have to have a federal government passport. Your state government's not good enough, and your province's government's not good enough. Used to be good enough. It's an endless addition of more and more government regulations to take away your freedoms. And I'm a Canadian. I'm not even American. I mean, some of you people think that all Canadians are communists from Cuba. I look at Canada and the United States and I say, we have got government overreach. And I can't help but tell you that I am convinced that 9/11 was an inside job, and I'm a Canadian. In other words, George W. Bush, Dick Cheney, and Donald Rumsfeld were behind 9/11. The official story was, oh, there's a lot of these Islamic terrorists. But why was it that George W. Bush allowed the Saudis to leave the country right after 9/11? Because a lot of Saudis were blamed. I don't trust the American presidents. I never liked George H.W. Bush. I thought that George W. Bush, W, was a dummy, and his vice president was a madman. Canadians thought it was about time that you had a black president. But the first thing that happened when Obama got into office, very first thing was they gave him the Nobel Peace Prize. Now, I could see after 8 years of being president and having a record to stand on, a record of peacemaking, that you might give someone the Nobel Peace Prize. But not at the beginning of their term. And truth be told, the Nobel Committee should have revoked the Peace Prize for Obama because under his presidency there was massive wars going on, nothing to do with peace at all. Or even over in Great Britain, we knew that your President Richard Nixon was a crook.
Even in outer space, we know that the U.S. people are pro-freedom, but the U.S. government is often not in alignment with its own people.
I don't know where you want me to go. The Hunter's Lodge. Somebody wants me to talk about President Trump. I mean, there's all kinds of other presidents that you had. I mean, you had President Lincoln. That man shouldn't be given the Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, sure, there was a civil war, but I mean, talk about changing freedoms in your country. George Washington for kicking out the mad King George of Great Britain. You have had some presidents in the past that were very much pro-freedom. And your most recent presidents are mostly about screwing the people and giving tax breaks to people like Jeffrey Epstein. I just find it very funny that, they report that Epstein committed suicide under suicide watch. And then sometime later it was reported in all the major papers that his bank accounts were discovered emptied. Jeffrey Epstein is not dead. Jeffrey Epstein was freed. and I don't know where he's living, but he's got all his money.